these measures.
Bay Central, Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, I spoke with Chris in Grand Falls, Windsor, just this morning. He explained how the $5,000 that was announced yesterday would only be a drop in the bucket to help convert his elderly parents from burning oil to heating their home with a heat pump. His parents struggled last winter, and now their oil bill is nearly doubled, and that's without carbon tax. In the new year, carbon tax will add another 20% to their home heating bill. Will this Liberal government stop forcing carbon tax down the throats of Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, these are challenging times for Canadians, and we want to help. The price of home heating oil has certainly increased over the past year, and we want to make sure that people aren't forced to choose between heating their home and putting food on the table. That's why yesterday the Nova Scotia Regional Minister announced a program that will give up to $5,000 to low and middle income families to help with the cost of replacing their furnace with new and more efficient heat pumps. Transitioning away from heating oil will save families thousands of dollars on their heating bills, Mr. Speaker, reduce pollution, create new jobs across the country. And today, Mr. Speaker, in Nova Scotia, the carbon price rebate was announced will more than compensate for any increases in home heating oil and fuel for cars.
Honourable Member for Coast of Bay Central, Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, that member should have better sense. He knows that program is garbage. The carbon tax cult opposite continues to gloat about the need to tax Atlantic Canadians. But the evidence is in. Carbon tax isn't working. We rank 58 out of 64 countries in fighting climate change. Canada's emissions are higher now than ever. Carbon tax just fuels inflation. When will this Liberal government stop forcing their failed carbon tax down the throats of Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, certainly affordability is extremely important, and we have taken significant steps to address affordability issues, including the investment of $250 million for heat pumps yesterday. It's also the case that no matter how much the Conservatives try to mislead this House, 8 out of Canadian families actually get more money back than they pay with respect to the price on pollution, and certainly in Newfoundland and Labrador it will mean money in the pockets of folks there. I would also say, as I said before, it bears stating that every member of that side of the House campaigned on putting in place a price on pollution in the last election. What do you say to your constituents? My goodness.
The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Nova Scotia surpassed the Liberal federal government's 2030 emission targets already and will reach net zero by 2050 without a carbon tax, but these Liberals today are imposing one, and that carbon tax is going to add $360 to a tank of home heating oil when 40% of Atlantic Canadians are living in energy poverty. Liberals seem more focused on ineffective taxes than they are on actual results. So when will this Liberal government stop forcing Canadians to have the failed carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Maybe the member opposite should listen to the Leader of the Opposition, who recognized earlier that this will not take into effect before July of next year. Now, I don't know about you, Mr. Speaker, but in July, I don't tend to heat my home very much. They would like Canadians to continue to be dependent.
The Honourable Minister from the beginning so we can all hear the answer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Leader of the Opposition said earlier, during this question period, this will not take into effect before July of next year, Mr. Speaker. And in the meantime, we are helping tens of thousands of Canadians to get rid of their home heating oil, which is more expensive, more polluting, and less efficient. So they would like to condemn those Canadians to continue being dependent on systems that will cost them more and more over time, as opposed to a system that will save them thousands of dollars every year, Mr. Speaker. That's the unfortunate truth.
The Honourable Member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
So these Liberals are proud that in 2023 they're going to add $360 to a tank of home heating oil. And then the 2015 election, this Prime Minister said the provinces that do the hard work of reducing carbon emissions will not have the carbon tax imposed. Yet, Nova Scotia has already surpassed the 2030 carbon reduction targets of this Liberal government. So I'll ask again, when will these Liberals live up to their campaign promise and stop forcing their failed carbon tax on Nova Scotians?
The Honourable Minister for Official Languages.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, what we are proud of is that we do have a plan to fight climate. With respect to the comments that have been made on the other side, Mr. Speaker, it's absolutely unbelievable that they are still denying that climate change is real. When we look at Atlantic Canada, and my colleague who asked this question, in his province of Nova Scotia, we have seen the devastation firsthand. We realize that we have to tackle this, and we have to tackle it immediately. Again, I asked my colleague, why is it that they are against focusing on really fighting climate? Because it is an emergency that we have to deal with right now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Environment is back from COP27 empty-handed. He spent his time defending the interests of big oil companies, and today he had a chance to make carbon pricing fairer and ensure that big polluters really pay what they owe. But again, he failed Canadians. So why is it so hard for this minister to stand up to big polluters?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for her question. I would quote the words of the Canadian Climate Action Network, who said that on the issue of loss and damage, which was one of the victories of the COP27 conference, Canada was a first mover, Mr. Speaker, and I quote, first mover amongst rich countries to make this thing happen. We fought for this. We fought for stronger language in the text on eliminating the use of coal all around the world, Mr. Speaker, including obviously in Canada, and we fought for stronger text on the elimination of fossil fuel subsidies. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, last week Manitoba's Conservative government announced a plan to privatize healthcare services in our province. Hospitals in Winnipeg are overflowing after years of cuts, and what is their answer? Moving towards a system where the size of your wallet determines the quality of your care. Public administration is one of the 5 principles of the Canada Health Act, and it must be defended. Will the Liberals stand up and stop this attempt to dismantle our public health care system piece by piece?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate very much. I think we all do the question posed by the member. We're all very mindful of the challenges our public health care system is going through now, with health workers being tired, leaving in large numbers, sometimes thinking about their future, nurses in particular. That's why we want to maintain and to support our public health system, and that's why exactly we need to do that in collaboration and in support to provinces and territories.
Member for